And on the more serious side of things, approaching aged care can make anyone anxious. I think you may well appreciate that. Even more so, though, for those who've been previously in formalised care, maybe as a young person. There are moves afoot to make that transition easier the second time round, and we'll learn about those shortly. Right now, though, forgotten Australians. This is the term that's being given to many Australians who've in some part of their life grown up in state care, foster care, in some kind of a care situation, and who now, as they get older, are facing the prospect of returning to formalised care through their older years. There are some particular challenges that faces, and it's certainly very much front of mind for those at Helping Hand. Meg Schwarz is a project coordinator of inclusive communities at Helping Hand. Meg, good afternoon.
Oh, good afternoon, Sonia.
Now, Meg, you run Helping Hand has how many facilities and where exactly?
We have about 9 facilities all over South Australia. Sonia, Whyalla, Port Pirie, Jamestown, Clare, Parafield Gardens, North Adelaide, to name a few.
Why then are you focusing specifically on this group of people who you've called forgotten Australians?
Well, firstly, Sonia, I'm the project coordinator for rural care the second time around. I also identify as a forgotten Australian. And just briefly, the project started out as a pilot from 2019 to 2021. We've now been refunded for another 2 years. As you probably appreciate, trauma is significant among older people. Something like 75% of the total population suffer from some form of trauma. A high percentage of older people also carry significant trauma. Forgotten Australians are one of the key marginalised groups that because they spent their childhoods in orphanages, children's homes and foster care, kinship care and other forms of out-of-home care, as you probably appreciate, suffer from what we call complex trauma.
Would it be fair to say that they are suspicious of formalised care and that's one of the barriers you have to address?
It is a significant barrier. There were 500,000 children that spent time in care, something like 450,000 were non-Indigenous, 50,000 stolen generations. Then we have former child migrants and people impacted by forced adoption. The significant barriers that they carry are because of the abuse that they suffered whilst in care.
What then is Helping Hand doing to try to perhaps address or make that transition easier?
What we've done through the project, and I just want to step back a bit, is that those barriers to care for this group have impacted their lifestyles. So many forgotten Australians have a strong need for privacy. They dislike retelling stories. Many have low literacy. They have difficulty in trusting other people, emotional frailty, and also fragmented and fractured relationships. What Helping Hand has done, it's developed an array of resources predominantly for the aged care sector that talks about the history and experiences of this group, but more importantly, talks about how those barriers to accessing aged care can be supported by providing effective engagement with forgotten Australians. And that's like establishing trust by creating relaxed atmospheres and consistency and stability in services. Also identifying forgotten Australians at intake and assessment. So we've developed a 1.5 hour trauma-informed training broken up into 3 parts. It covers those 4 groups: forgotten Australians, stolen generations, former child migrants and people impacted by forced adoption. it's really important to understand the histories and experiences of not only forgotten Australians, but older people that come from a trauma background. So the training is actually pivotal in that support, and it's available on our website for the whole aged care and healthcare sectors. They're one of the many things that we've been doing, and as I said, the About Me one-page profile, practical tips brochures for the aged care sector, brochures for forgotten Australians, and our 1.5.
That's Dee Michelle from the University of Adelaide. Meg Schwarz, Helping Hand has really put the spotlight on this. What have you seen as being the most important things to come out of that in the way that you are looking at dealing with people who have previously been in care and coming into aged care?
Well, I think it's a really interesting, important question that you're asking, Sonia. I think for forgotten Australians, one of the most important things that I've seen, and that's been through a co-design framework that we developed with 16 to 20 people who are part of our co-design forum, all have indicated increase in self-esteem, increase in validation, feeling of inclusion, feeling at last that they've got a sense of family, and also that they're being heard. And of course that's happening through resources, and of course that's happening for training. For aged care providers, I think the story of forgotten Australians has been puzzling, shocking. It's been an awakening. Forgotten Australians largely have not been known or have been identified as another group. So I think for the aged care sector, it's this revelation that this group of people who suffered complex trauma in the situation of what is abuse has happened. So the story has come out.
Sure. So you're listening to people, there's more awareness, but what sort of practical steps are you doing to make it easier for these people?
Presentations. We are doing presentations in the Gippsland, in the Hunter region. We've done hundreds of presentations in universities, in hospitals, in all over Australia through sector support networks. We are running a Speak Out program for our lived experience trained forgotten Australians this year with a nationally known public speaking coach. That is a peer support group that will end up in a raft of videos and also a booklet that will become a national package. And that is to enhance confidence, and it's through storytelling, which we know has been evidence-based in changing lives, and not only healing, but also as an advocacy program. Our training, we are also developing more training and having conversations with people from a trauma background. So we will be developing that training in the next year as well. The Australian Association of Gerontology webinars, we've got conferences.
Oh, well, it sounds like there's plenty there for those who would like to access that information. Meg Schwarz, look, thank you for telling us about that. She's the Project Coordinator of Inclusive Communities at Helping Hand.